regular meeting of July 10th, 2023 will now come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, you want to call the roll?
Yeah,
Shaw.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Conan.
Here.
Adair.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
Sledge.
Here.
Duffy.
Here.
That's weird.
Okay.
Sam here.
Yep.
For 20 years, it didn't matter.
Do I have a motion on the agenda?
Mr. President, I'll move the agenda be accepted as presented.
Support. Motion by Ballard, supported by Shaw. All in favor? Aye. Motion's approved. Is there any citizen comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. Moving on. DTE.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Phil Whitman. I'm the regional manager for Macomb and St. Clair County for our corporate and government affairs division. So my job, as I tell laymen, is when the mayor's angry about a power outage, he calls me. Basically, but what I really am is a problem solver. So my job is to get resources from the company to where they need to go, whether that's an overhead field crew, whether it's an underground crew, or whether it's a donation for a Christmas tree lighting in a community we want to support, which is all of them. But that's what my role is, and so a part of that is coming out to local government, and we do these on a fairly regular basis. We call it an electrical system health check. So what I'm going to go through tonight, and my idea was I have a presentation here, a PowerPoint that I was going to project, but I didn't connect with, it's my fault, I didn't connect with Ross on what the technology was existing in the room. So I didn't bring any of my own. And then my plan was to print the presentation, and then FedEx was not able to print the size of this thing and I was going to be late. So I thought it'd be better just to come and talk through than to actually show up late. So.
Michelle, he's gonna give you a copy, so you can.
Yes, I'll present a copy. I'll strip a couple of things out that so there's some things that we don't generally distribute, but most of it is fair game and you guys can distribute it or read it and consume it at your will. So,
Bill, your title again?
regional manager for corporate government affairs. And I do Macomb and St. Clair counties, both.
Corporate government, I'm sorry, what was that last one?
Corporate and government affairs, that's a mouthful.
That's
Takes a long time to get out.
Okay.
So, the village of Armada, obviously within Armada Township in Macomb County. Armada Township, the 36 square mile township itself, is fed by 4 substations. Armada substation here in the village, Adams substation, which is southwest of here, Richmond substation, which is getting a major upgrade as well, and K-Pac, a very small portion of the northern central part is fed out of K-Pac. But the 2 circuits that are actually feeding Armada Village are Armada 8550 and Armada 0302. Those are your 2 circuits that feed everybody here in the village. And they're all fed out of the substation that's here in town. So, as I said, I had these all highlighted and stuff. But that's the basic map. You can see, I'll just kind of show, can't blow it up too much, but ARMAD, Armada substation right there, that little red dot here in the village. And it services most of the township as well, the vast majority. And I'll show the residents as well. So that's where you're fed out of. So one of the things that we want to highlight, obviously, and as everyone knows, we, DTE, it's been proven to us by all the outages that we've had, and it's not been as bad here in Armada as it's been elsewhere in our service territory. But we know that we need to invest in the grid. So we're doing that. And specifically to Armada substation, we have a couple of different things, and I've got some numbers here to present to you. We have customer excellence that we performed, and I'll define what all of these terms are. Customer excellence in 2022 that totaled $905,000, just north of there, almost 906. A cutout program this year, and cutouts are a device on the system, again, I'll define what those are. This year, that's about just south of $70,000 worth of upgrades just here in the village on that one circuit, one of the two. And then you had trees that were trimmed in 2020, and that was about $500,000, $448,000. Your next trim is scheduled for 2025. So you're just under 2 years out for another trimming. And that's another thing that we have focused on the last 10 years. There was a long period of time where many communities, not all, but many communities didn't want us to trim trees, and that led to massive amounts of overgrowth. So we had to put in a very hefty investment into tree trim through the late 20-teens into 2020 to get back on a normal cycle. So we were trimming every 2 to 3 years during that time frame to cut them back. Now we're close to back on a 5-year cycle, and Armada is back on a 5-year cycle. So you will have, for 8550, there's two circuits, 8550 and 0302, will be scheduled to be trimmed in 2025. That's actually the same for 0302 as well, also in 2025. But for the other circuit, 0302, customer excellence, a little bit less because I think it's smaller. $82,000 worth of investment. The cutout program, $25,000 in 2023 this year. Tree trim, almost $2 million. $1,841,523 in 2020. And then we have a circuit conversion scheduled in 2025, and that's part of the substation work that's going on. Circuits are going to be converted to serve the higher load that the new substation equipment is going to be able to feed. I've got some more numbers here for the Richmond and Adams and K-PAC circuits. Those don't feed the village, so they're probably not of interest to you, but suffice it to say, I've got numbers here. 10,000, 6 million, 76,000, 144,236. So we're spending millions of dollars just in Armada Township and the village to upgrade the system.
Those other circuits, Phil, are really, we look at those as backups. If it fails here, then they would take the load.
That's exactly right. That's a good point. And they are, so they don't feed you normally, but, and as you just experienced a couple of weeks ago, we had a failure on our Adams line that services the township. Those two Adams lines, actually 3 of them that feed the township, they can be what we call throw over load from Armada substation to the Adams substation. So you can be backfed. If something fails at Armada, you can be backfed from Adams. Same thing goes for K-PAC. One of the things that's going to be important going forward is as we finish the upgrades at Richmond, it's basically being rebuilt from the ground up. So as we finish those upgrades, we're also conducting new circuits that should, when it's all said and done, again, we've got to get easements, and there's quite a bit that's going into. I just had a 2-hour meeting earlier today talking about easements. But when that work is all done, that should be an additional redundancy for you guys, as you should be able to be fed out of Richmond as well.
Because didn't you have us out of Adams when you put in the
Correct.
lines? Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Where is
yeah.
Adams?
Adams is, I can get you the actual address.
Just location.
Looks
I don't know
like-
where Adams.
It's real small. It looks like it might be 29 Mile. I can get you the address though.
Yeah.
That's not hard. But yeah, it's southwest of the village. Looks like on about 29 Mile Road, and yeah, these are
Yeah.
he's got it overlaid, so I can't read it here.
Is that by M53?
I believe so. That's what it looks
I
like.
know. It's right by the Macomb.
It's by M53. You're
Macomb
right.
County DPW yard.
Yeah.
You go up north on M53.
So that sounds right, but I can confirm that. But that from the map that I can't read, it looks like that's the case. Any other questions about the substations? What our investment is? Just outage numbers. 2021 for your 2 circuits here in the village. 2021, as everyone knows, was a very rough year for everybody. There were 7 outages on 8550 and 3 outages on Armada 0302. In 2022, those went down to 4 and 2 total. So 4 for 8550, 2 for 0302. And year to date for 2023, you've had 3 on 8550, almost entirely due to that substation work that was going on, and I'll go through that in a little bit. And then on 0302, you only had 1. So those are the outage numbers for at the circuit level. There are individual homes that'll go out for, they're downstream of the circuit, but for what we call circuit level outages, where everybody on the circuit is out, those are the numbers for the past 3 years.
Is the reduced frequency that's based upon some of these improvements over time, I'm
Correct.
assuming?
Yeah, and that's what
Tree trimming,
the tree trimming is far and away the biggest piece of it. Trees cause over 80% of our outages system-wide. There's other things that we can do to tackle that 20% that's not trees, but the trees are the major thing, and that's why we're investing so much. You saw the numbers.
yes.
The technology, 72,000, tree trim, $500,000.
Yes.
There's a reason for that. So that's exactly right. Any other questions?
It just seemed like they put an awful lot of effort in the winter into working on the substation down here, and so maybe it seemed bigger than it was, but it seemed like they were uprooting a lot of stuff and making a lot of changes. In fact, they're down there today asphalting.
Yeah, that's what you and I were discussing. Yeah, we are making a lot of changes to the substation because, frankly, northern Macomb up here, this is the growth area. So that substation, when it was built, it's built for what's there at the time, and then plus, obviously, we have, a percentage of overage that we anticipate. Well, as development moves north, obviously, the equipment is outpaced by what it's serving. So we did put quite a bit of investment into that substation this winter, you're right. And so, yeah, that's what it's for. So to serve the additional load that we anticipate, that we're seeing now and that we anticipate going into the future.
The 2 circuits, that may explain one of the reasons why some of the village would be lit up and the other half is dark.
Correct.
Just because of the way the circuit's laid out.
That's exactly right. Now, I was hoping he had, he doesn't have, and I can get it for you, an actual breakdown of which circuits feed where in the village versus, because I believe 8550 covers most of it, and then 0302 is the smaller portion. So, but I can get that for you.
It's just an interest question because, after the outage would occur, that then became the topic of discussion. Well, why do they got light? We've got nothing. And they've been on for a week and we've been down for a week and,
Right.
Trying to understand that. And
That's exactly it.
makes sense. So.
Mhm. Yeah. The way that I have just a case in point, I have a situation in St. Clair Shores that I'm dealing with where I've got 2 streets that seem to go out every time the wind blows, and we think we know what the problem is, but it's very difficult for somebody to see on Kramer Street at 10 Mile. The south side of the road is always out, and the north side always has lights on. So for those residents, it's very difficult to watch, to have no power for 2-3 days, and then your neighbor across the street is watching TV. So that's a tough thing to explain, but that is the
Same here.
Yeah.
Gotta run an extension cord.
Love thy neighbor.
Yeah, that's,
Yep.
obviously, I don't recommend running an extension cord.
No.
But I understand the sentiment for sure. But that is exactly why that happens, because they're fed separately.
Now, the work that's being done along Ridge Road with the new metal poles and that, is that part of another circuit that's gonna kind of
Yes.
loop us together, so we're not a dead end?
That is part of, we also have, there's another substation, brand new from the ground up, going in on Grammar Road in Lenox Township. So we have, with the Richmond upgrades, and then with the Armada upgrades, to serve all this additional load, we're putting in new lines as well to connect. Those are going to be new interconnection points. Again, we'll increase redundancy. So you've got, instead of having 4 redundancies, now you're going to have potentially 5 with Richmond. And if we can tie in to Lenox, to the Lenox substation, which is called Grammar substation because it's on Grammar Road, that would be an additional one too. So again, it's all based on, we can go in the road right of way, but this is engineering stuff, it's above my pay grade. The engineers know where it needs to go and how long it can be. But if we can get the easements and get it done, there'll be even another one there with.
Are you gonna hook the cable lines and all that still have the wood poles? Are those gonna go on those big?
Oh, you mean, are you asking me if we're gonna change from wood to steel?
Well, you did going to
Yeah.
Richmond. I'm gonna go on record and say I hate it. I do. I think it looks industrial. I don't like it. But
You're not the first.
that being said, I see a lot of the wood poles are still there, but that's got cable and phone or whatever it's got on it. Are those lines gonna get attached lower on the steel ones, or are those wood structures still gonna stay there?
So,
Because it does look awful. I'm
so
sorry. It just does.
so I can get a good answer for, we have a joint use group, those are what we call joint users, the cable and the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm 99% sure they will be eventually moved
Think
to
that will
steel
help
poles
the
and
aesthetic.
remove the wood. It
Yeah.
doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have two like that.
No, it doesn't.
Looks very congested.
Yeah,
It
so
just
I
looks
mean,
industrial to me. I don't like it. But
you're saying because of the two poles, or you're
well,
saying just the
I
steel?
don't like the industrial poles myself, the steel
Yeah.
ones. First of all, I think, if you crash into that thing, you're a goner for sure. But I just didn't like the look of the steel one and then the wood one,
Yeah.
probably 10 or 15 feet away from it, but when you're driving by, it looks a lot closer. It just looks,
Sure.
it just isn't aesthetically nice looking.
Like I said, 99% sure that those
Okay.
will be,
I hope so.
there's no reason for us to have, the whole point of the steel poles, and you're not, again, you mentioned St. Clair Shores again, we had a 9-mile bridge, we had a cable failure, that was under the bridge, so we had to move them up on steel poles over 9 Mile and 94 if you drive through that area. They don't like those steel poles either.
Yeah.
The
But it's
reason
just a
we're-
personal
yeah.
opinion.
No,
I'm
well,
not
and
speaking for anybody.
it's shared with others, not, I mean, some people, everybody has different preferences,
Mhm.
but the reason we're using them in a lot of cases is they're more resistant.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
don't
I
snap,
get, that you
so-
don't have to replace them, I get it, I get the reasoning behind it, I just don't like the look.
It seems to also elevate a number of the lines above some of the trees, surrounding
That's,
trees.
Yeah.
that's another, they're a little bit taller, they're a little bit more resilient, it gets it up and away from, what could bring them down, which is trees almost always, so.
Is it cost, I mean, I understand it's be cost prohibitive, I can't say the word, but to go underground,
So,
how do you
yes.
decide when you can, I mean, it's just probably way more expensive.
It
Lana's
is.
laughing at me, but I'm sure he's an electrician, so.
It is, so I'll give the example, so we have, you may have, if you've been down Mound
I've
Road.
had people ask me this.
There's all the federal dollars that went into the Innovate Mound Road project where everything's being put underground.
Mhm.
We've run into all kinds of problems of things that you run into when you start digging.
Sure.
That we think we know what's there, because we keep
Don't know
maps
till you
and
get under it,
schematics,
yeah.
and then we find things. And
Yeah.
so then you have to figure out who owns this thing, contact them, get them out there. So it's
Are they
very.
still in existence, right?
Right, are they, yeah, exactly, are they still a
Right.
going concern? Generally with undergrounding, it is something we're looking at. Our, Jerry Norcia, our CEO, has said this on the record many times, that where we can underground and it makes sense, we're gonna do that.
Yeah.
I will say that there's two main drawbacks to undergrounding. One is the cost, it's about $1 million a mile generally, that's the boilerplate number
sure.
we give out. The other problem with undergrounding is that when it does go out, we gotta dig it up to fix it, so it
Right.
goes out for longer.
Yeah.
And they do fail,
It would save
cables
some trees,
fail, water infiltrates despite our
Sure.
best effort to put them in a PVC pipe or whatever we're doing,
though. Right,
water will get in there and they'll fail, so.
yeah.
Those are the two main drawbacks, but in
Sure.
a lot of places, it does make sense if we've got really dense tree canopies,
Mhm.
if we can underground, we'll do it,
Okay, all
for
right,
sure.
good answer.
Okay, any other questions about sort of the substation work that's going on? And I will get to, I've got I mentioned I just find what customer excellence and cutouts are here in a little bit.
Is it wrapping up, the work down here, is it wrapping up? I mean, it would seem so.
It's getting close to the end. We have it's in here. I think they've got, the major stuff is being wrapped up. We've still got some tweaks we're doing, and the end date is 2025.
Okay.
I believe, let me, before you write that down, Ross, let me make sure I've got that right. That's off the top of my head. So it's in sort of what we call like gate 4, as a project management speak. I don't even really know what it means. I know there's only 5 gates though.
I was gonna say gate 4 out of 10 or gate 4
No,
out of 5?
there's only 5. Yeah,
Okay.
so we're getting close to the end. So, and then brings me to my next slide, which is substation transformer replacement timeline. And this is that 316 to 44 sort of outages that you experienced, and it was all related to these upgrades. So just to take you through kind of what happened. So on March 16th, Michelle and I were talking. Transformer number 2 had high voltage. Crews went out to investigate. We didn't know why. We could just see that it's high voltage downtown Detroit, right? So we sent a crew out to investigate. There's high hydrogen levels that were in the transformer. We had to shut it down. It was recommended to replace it before it fails. On 317, substation access was prohibited by our field crews because of the high hydrogen levels. It's not a danger. That's not a danger to anybody. It's a safety issue because we thought it was an imminent failure on the transformer, right? So we didn't want anybody in there if it's going to fail. Turns out that it did fail. Portable substation at that point, before it failed, though, back up. 317, we restricted access. We brought the portable substation out. There's a portable generator and a portable sub, 2 different things. They look different. The portable sub is much, much larger. That was the one that was at the granary. That was the portable sub. The site that we normally set that substation up was damaged in the tornado in 2020. They said 2022?
No.
That's
21.
21. That's wrong. That's that engineer who wrote this.
Yeah.
It's 21. But we put that granary was the new location that we had to troubleshoot to get it out here. On 318, so it did fail. He didn't put this in here. We were anticipating it was going to fail. We were trying to proactively get out there and shut it down and replace it. We didn't do it fast enough. So it did fail. 318, we built 13.2 kV and 40 kV leads to that temp site. Just trying to walk you through the amount of work it goes to get in, to get these pieces of equipment in and to restore power in situations like this. On 319, those 13.2 and 40 kV leads were connected to the portable sub. Then 320, we had a phasing issue that was identified and fixed between the portable sub. Again, this is all engineer speak, so I'm trying to interpret it myself. Between the portable sub that we installed out there and Armada 8550. That's the
Bigger one.
the circuit, bigger circuit of the 2. An oil circ pump failed at the portable sub and required replacement. Okay, so we bring the sub out to restore you guys, then the portable sub fails. Customers on 8550 were transferred to the neighboring circuit, that's Adams, and there was a momentary outage while we did that. On 321, the next day, substation trans 2 at Armada was shut down. That's the one that was failing. Now we're shutting it down to do the replacement. Hydrogen levels had dissipated by that time, so work could begin. And on 4.4, Armada load is transferred from the portable generator, from the portable sub to the portable generator. That other one that was right near the trail. That's like the little DG that we rolled out. And it had a short interruption for customers while we did that. So we recognize that this is very inconvenient, obviously, when these things happen. There are things, and this is why we invest in the system, and we try and do it proactively. We see something's about to fail. That's not exactly proactive. We're watching it, saying it's about to fail, meaning it's about to arc, basically, and it's reached the end of its useful life, and it's going to imminently not exist anymore, basically. So once we see that, tried to bring a fix out, then that failed, and then we had to. So again, just wanted to take the council through what happened there. Then apologize. We did put in quite a bit of effort to try and keep the power on proactively. But we did experience several longer and a couple of momentary outages while we moved things around. Any questions about what was going on there at the end of March, April?
It's quite an
Can I ask one?
I would just say.
Yes.
So you're talking about all these events that took place. Why didn't DTE reach out to the community to see if anyone was affected and if any made compensation for any losses?
So we usually send messages to anybody who's going to be affected by these. So we have everybody's, obviously, any customer's name, address, and generally a phone. Some, believe it or not, for some customers we don't have a phone number. But if we do have contact information, we will send what we call message on demand. They call MODs, message on demand. We send them out, and as best we can, let you know that we know that you're experiencing an outage, and if we can provide an estimate, we do. And we don't I've got all this information here because this is after the fact when the crews go out to the location and they pinpoint what's been going on. Often we just know that something's wrong, and we have to allow some time to go out and investigate. Now, as to the compensation issue, we are regulated. So the MPSC sets we're allowed to go in certain cases over what the MPSC sets, and we're negotiating with the Public Service Commission to adjust the sort of reliability credits that $35 that everybody I know is not nearly enough to replace anything that's lost. Really, $35. That's what's that, like maybe 20 McChickens at McDonald's. That's not a lot of food.
You had businesses downtown that were shut down for days on end. You had families at the refrigerators, all the food spoiled, they had to throw it out. The school district incurred some significant losses because no one bothered to communicate with the school district that the power will be out for several days at a time. And now they're trying to figure out how to handle that end of the equation. Now, have you reached out to the school district?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good, the schools, so we did have a, sort of a gap, and is this part of regular order? I don't know if this is not normal.
We're starting to veer
Okay.
off of our purpose here.
I wanted to stay within the confines, but just to answer this last question, with the school districts, we have different types of schools. If they're a very large school, they're what's called a primary customer, and they have a dedicated account representative that communicates with them on a regular basis.
That's what we said, yeah.
I don't believe Armada School District is a primary customer. So, and we know that that's a gap, and we have I'm part of it. We have an entire team stood up to assign every single school district, whether it's a tiny Catholic school, private school, up to the largest school district, which already have account managers, but make sure that there's a dedicated resource. Because my team that's the one level of government we don't communicate with is school districts, because they normally have an account manager, but we're closing that gap. So the answer to your question is yes, we have communicated with the school district, and we've dedicated resources to making sure that they're contacted appropriately when these types of things happen.
But will they be made whole financially?
That's not a question I can answer today.
Yeah, Kevin, you may have to contact Detroit Edison directly.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
They're part of our community. I figured he's here. I'll ask.
Yeah, but he's here to update us on what they're doing to avoid this. Some of these things come under the act of nature too.
Oh, I understand that.
So,
I'm not beating up on him. I'm just saying,
I'm not
just
trying
make
to
the
defend
poll.
Detroit Edison, but like the tornado and things that happen, some of that was beyond their control. But again, you want to go on with your presentation, please?
Sure, absolutely. So in terms of, to answer that question, that's something that the corporate attorneys and the district attorneys would have to figure out. So, let me go into, I just wanted to, because I don't want to take up the entirety of my time. I don't know how long I've even been talking here.
Well,
30 minutes, wow. Okay, so I can talk as long as you guys want or as short as you guys want.
Short is always short.
Wait, start condensing it, please.
No problem. So cutouts, it's a device on the system. It's in a class of devices called relays, which tell us things about what's going on in the system. So we're replacing some of those. This model of cutouts that was out here in this area was older, and it accounted for 76% of all cutout failures just on your 2 circuits. It was this older piece of equipment, we're replacing all of that. That's some of the monies I talked about before. Customer excellence, it's a program that focuses on identifying and fixing potential outage causes by patrolling the circuit proactively. So we go out there and we physically drive it and see, is that tree gonna be a problem? Does that transformer look like it's, like it's rusty or it's about to fail? So we go out there and proactively drive them. We're spending money doing that. I mentioned those numbers earlier. They may include replacing poles, overhead lines, and other equipment, transformers and the like. And we can add circuit sectionalizing devices. This is one other piece I do want to spend a minute on. Sectionalizing is important because, as I mentioned, those circuit level outages, everybody gets taken out when you have circuit level outages. If you can sectionalize or have pieces of equipment that can isolate where the problem is and keep portions of the circuit on, that's a win for everybody. Obviously, we don't want anybody out, but the most people that are unaffected when we have a large outage, the better. So sectionalizing is an important piece, and those relays and cutouts, that's what does that. And so replacing those sort of older, faultier cutouts are going to help with that. And then strategic tree trimming is a part of customer excellence as well.
Is the new metal building down there, the new control panel versus the old brick structure that's down there, or both being used? Or?
Both are being used now. I believe when all of the work is complete, all of the main equipment will be housed in the newer structure, the metal structure. I don't think we're demolishing the brick structure. We'll use it for something else, storage, something. But it won't. I believe, and I can confirm this, but all the new equipment will be in that metal structure.
Okay.
So just briefly, the grid strategy, just to kind of leave you with what the major points of what we're doing to try and harden the grid as best we can. Tree trimming, a major part of it. With infrastructure resilience and what we call hardening, I just used that word. Just adding new pieces of equipment to sectionalize, which I just went through, and replacing older stuff. We have an older system. That's not an excuse, it just is a fact, and we're upgrading as fast as we can. Infrastructure redesign, that is a couple of things. That's putting in new substations, expanding their capability, and also increasing redundancy. I talked about that a little bit too. Also, undergrounding where it's appropriate. And then technology and automation. We built a shiny new SOC System Operations Center downtown. I came from SOC before I had this job. I did really boring federal compliance stuff, but it was in a 70s style map board with the system. In order to change the system, you had to pop out these vinyl tiles and redo it. It was something. It was right out of the 70s. That was my first job. Was changing the tiles, and now we have a nice brand new one that's electronic, and it's faster to do everything basically. Which speed is good, obviously. So that was another huge investment. That was close to $1 billion just on that. Smart meters. Cybersecurity, so we don't have to protect ourselves from hacks. Obviously we haven't had any, but I mean everyone hears the news stories about things. So we're spending money on that kind of technology to make sure that doesn't happen. So those are the 4. Tree trimming, an important part, and then just to I'll close with this. So to execute tree trim, which is the biggest part of our outage mitigation strategy, phase 1. We call it initiate. It takes 8 to 12 weeks. We contact community residents where we see that we need to trim trees. There's different types of tree trims. In almost all cases, unless they're in a right-of-way, unless they're in like our prescriptive easement or a road right-of-way, we'll work with the customer to make sure that it's okay if we have to tree trim on private property. The 2 to 7 weeks for planning. Phase 3 is actually executing and then closing out 1 to 4 weeks. So to get a whole tree trim done, I'm just counting up weeks here. 12 plus 7, so 19, 20, 25 weeks on the far end. So to execute an entire tree trim of a circuit. That's a whole circuit level tree trim.
I think the tornado took out a lot of the trees.
That did a lot
Took
of
out all
trimming
mine.
for you.
Yeah.
And then so this is what, just to leave you with this, for tree trim, why it's important. This is I believe this is near, this is Chesterfield, I think. Chesterfield Township, before and after. So you can see why those trees are gonna be a problem, and why getting them out of there is gonna, every time, if it gets heavy, if it's raining and those branches get heavy and the wind blows, they touch. And even a small touch that lasts more than 30 seconds, the equipment's gonna operate because it thinks, in certain cases, and I can talk, like I said, I could talk all day, but we have different types, some older types of 4.8 kV is a voltage level. But what it really means in practical terms is if we have older equipment that we're trying to upgrade, if it sees that tree for a given number of seconds, it shuts the whole circuit down for safety reasons, because if on 4.8, if that wire's on the ground, it's live. On 13.2, it's dead. So that's why we're trying to get it all to 13.2. But on that old stuff, those trees are a huge concern. So trimming them is of utmost importance. So that's, any final questions before I kind of close out?
When you do tree trimming, that's your line, that's kind of like your transmission line. So my service lead from, I guess, from the pole to my house, that's my responsibility. Is that accurate, or do you go and trim for that situation also?
So we own your service drop up to where it touches your house. So
I would trim.
They're coming in your yard, John.
No, I don't like that. I was asking.
But we
more
will
like-
not trim inside your yard. We would trim the service drop if the tree that's in right where it connects, we trim near there. But we're not gonna go into your yard and trim in there. So if you have a large tree in the middle of your yard that's impacting the service drop, yes, it would behoove you to get that tree trimmed professionally.
I guess what I was wondering is, I just want to make sure, so if that branch takes out that line, that's affecting me, it may not affect the whole.
It likely won't, unless it pulls down the wire pole to pole,
Right.
it'll only affect you.
Only
yes.
affects you.
Correct.
Whereas the main focus is making
Yeah.
sure that the
line is
They have a line.
Yeah, the pole to pole lines
Yeah, okay.
to make sure that those are trimmed. That's where we're focusing our efforts, yeah.
Okay, and real quick, ITC, a different entity, handles transmission lines.
Correct.
Are those mostly like large power supply lines not affected to like residential?
Yes, ITC very rarely has tree-related outages, because if you're going down 94 as you go up towards Port Huron, those big giant towers, that's ITC lines. They used to be ours,
Right.
but they're ITCs now. Those are not usually affected too much by storm. They can be in certain times, but they don't have the same problems we do with tree trim, because our lines are smaller and lower to the ground, basically. Any other questions from council?
Phil, I want to thank you for.
Yeah, so
It was a pleasure. I like doing these. These are fun for me. I want to get the information out there.
Yeah, appreciate that. Like I say, if you can, I know you talked to Michelle too, so you can send her a copy directly.
Sure.
And then she can pass the presentation out to council at the next meeting, or at least put it in the record.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll send it. I'll make sure it's nice and clean and get it out to you guys. And I apologize that I didn't have it here. I meant to.
Yeah, that's
Just
true.
tell the engineer to fix the tornado date, because
Yeah,
we're
that's right. Yeah,
very, very sensitive to that.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'll talk to him. He did a nice job, but he did have a typo.
Yeah, I'm kind of kidding.
All right.
But
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Phil.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Drive
your
safe.
patience. I will.
Okay. Moving on to administrative reports, just a reminder, administrative reports is what it says. It's a report on your administration. Go ahead, who would like to go first?
I have on there the police action report, I did not receive that, so that was not in the,
Do you have something, Joe, or not?
no, he was on vacation.
Okay,
Called me today for good excuse.
so, who else would, Ross, Chris, Steve?
I'm good.
All right, I've got my usual laundry list. So, have a ZBA appeal coming up in late July, just info, Michelle, I'll be getting you the notice for the newspaper tomorrow. so that we can get that into the paper and notify the people concerned. We did make the final administrative changes that council approved to the infrastructure capital improvement plan and received a second set of free maps because F&B was late in turning around that project. This does include a good set of maps for the police department, so we extracted as much consideration out of them, I think, as we reasonably could, and I'm happy with the result. I do need to get Michelle a copy of the adjusted report with the title and the pagination. Water tower is going to be right now chemically cleaned, probably around somewhere in the week of 18 October. 18 October is a Wednesday, so somewhere in that week. That means the water system is going to be pumping full time. Tower is going to be voided because they got to get in the tower. They're going to clean it and then they're going to inspect it.
So they'll be emptying the tower.
Going to empty the tower.
And then everything's gonna be pumped direct.
It's going to be pumped direct. So remember, several months ago, we got a variable frequency drive for well house number 7 on order. It is still not expected to be here until late September. So we're chasing dates here, but we want to get that done because, as he talked about, equipment failing. You know, we think it's going to fail and then it fails. That's when this thing is going to fail. When we void the tower and those pumps run continuously, that's when it's going to go. You know, we hope not, but I would bet on it. So right now, everything is still on schedule. We do have an alternate date of 1st of November that we could do it if the 18th of October does not give us sufficient time to get the VFD in, get it installed, tuned, and tested. So we're watching that very closely.
So when's the cleaning being done?
It would be done sometime that week.
In October?
In the week of 18 October. So that's a Wednesday, and it's just sometime that week.
How long
Viola.
does it take to drain that thing?
It takes a while. So DPW's got to be involved in this. F&V operations, you know, our operator for the water system got to be involved, and Veolia, who does the tower service. So it's kind of an all hands on deck that week.
Those are the guys doing the work.
They're the ones that we pay to do the work,
Right.
and so this is part of our water budget. We pay them
Yeah,
a chunk of money every year.
We set this up, what, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, at least.
On
The payment
regular
plan, so
basis.
we'd be ready for things.
Dan Sutherland was the water commissioner at the time, I
Yeah.
think, when we did this.
It was a good move to do because it's not an insignificant amount of money to do that kind of work. It also covers painting the tower and so on.
Right.
And then the yearly inspections.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Russ, are they gonna put in some temporary towers around?
There has not been any discussion about that. The thought is we don't need them.
I think you're gonna, because, you know, running those pumps on a head like that is not good for them.
You know, when we had our water tower go out on us years ago, not this tower, but the old tower, we actually brought in a tank
Yes.
that served as our water tank, which it was right next to, well, Chaps, or I made a bar and grill.
Oh, yeah.
It sat in there, didn't it?
Down by Patrick's.
Patrick's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
front Patrick's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not aware that they feel there's a need to do it, but it's a good question. I'm not the smart guy on this, so I will ask them. That's why we have them do it, not me do it.
Done this at least 3 or 4 times.
the-
since I've been here.
Just to your point
We've
about
done this before.
running,
Yeah.
yeah, running the pumps continuously, one of the
Okay.
reasons we do it in the fall is because water usage is down.
When was the last time we did this?
I did ask that question, I never got an answer back, so Mike, do you have any idea?
No.
Maybe
I
the last-
We have
maybe the
done it
last 10
before.
years.
I was commissioner when I started.
It's been 10 at least.
We have
Yeah.
done this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we've done it a couple of times.
And we never brought a tank in then,
I'd have to
and we
look
didn't
into
have a
it.
problem with
But
our
we did
pumps.
not.
I guess it doesn't hurt to ask the question.
No, it's, I'll ask the
I'm
question.
sure they have
because
a
I
game
wanna-
with him, but.
I wanna make sure our system is fully operational and in good shape to handle whatever the load is. I don't know what mitigation mechanisms they bring in, Lyle, so that's a good question. They may be planning on doing it, I just don't know. They'll be sending out letters in the July-August water sewer bill, announcing the start of the residential cross-connection inspections. These are also in the budget, we've already, paid for it, and these are for homeowners, but these are all external inspections. Nobody's going into any houses, but we want to get the word out. I'm going to probably put a couple public service announcements on our website, Michelle, and so on, because
Give me a copy, I'll put it on Channel 6.
that's a great idea. We don't want anybody pulling a gun on somebody that's walking around their house looking at sprinklers, right? So we're going to get the word out.
I don't think that's a very good choice of word.
Well, it's happened. It's
That's why it's
happened
not a
on the
good choice of
infrastructure
words.
stuff. So we want to be careful. I started talking to Michelle. You all recall we became members of SEMCOG, and I've been working with SEMCOG since we became a member to pull together an Armada 2050 briefing that talks about some of the issues we're going to face down the road. I think it's going to be a good briefing and very informative. Again, the short story is you will see M53 corridor develop and M19 develop, and Armada, both the village and township, got to be on their game because it will be easy to become irrelevant. And
You're probably aware that M53 corridor has been going to develop the last 50 years.
I got it.
All the way to 69.
I got it.
This is not a new thing.
No, but
So,
one of the jobs of the village is to look toward the future and plan for the future. So this is informational.
It's hard to plan for stuff that doesn't happen.
Well, it doesn't happen until it happens, right?
Never say never.
And so, in any case, the issue, Mr. President, is just that we probably want to do this with a larger audience and not just a group here. We probably want to bring the township in, even though they're not SEMCOG members, because as they go, we go, as we go, they go, and so we need to work
I
with them
guess
on
we
this.
should wait and see the SEMCOG presentation and then go from there. The one you said they're gonna put on.
So I'll work with Michelle on how to do it, and whether we want a closed door session first. I don't think it's anything to be afraid of, but just information.
Yeah, I don't know why we'd have the closed door.
Okay, well, just,
We got the
We
open
just-
door today.
yes, because the air conditioning doesn't work. This is not a very good room for a lot of people to come and see it, and it's not a good way to present it. So I'll continue working with Michelle and you on how best to do that. Was gonna bring back to the meeting tonight, capital improvement planning, but you really gave me the opportunity to move forward with something that was not planned in the budget, which was to do the preliminary design engineering on infrastructure. Again, the issue there would be, if we didn't do something.
On the roads.
On the roads, infrastructure, yeah. If we didn't get started on that and get some information to be ready for the next budget meeting, you're literally kicking the can down the road for another year and a half. And we didn't want to do that, so.
And that report's due
Yes, I
first
am.
meeting in August.
And I have today talked with F&V Engineering. We went over the scope of work, looking at it. I'm gonna talk to Roe about it as well, see who gives us the better offer.
All three of you guys are on that, in that group. Right?
Yeah, but I was doing the talking today. It's just, here's what we would like done, is to come back, look at the dollar figures we got and the two buckets of priority work and secondary work. So again, it's the better way to think about it is it's really bad condition or it's bad condition. But there are certainly much better ways to do that work and sequence or phase the work. Perhaps defer some of the work, use alternate construction methods and so on to bring the price down, and to do it over a period of years rather than one big
I
bill.
think we like to see some action at least next year. We're gonna see Lathrop Street this year,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yes, I agree, and this will, I think, if council approves moving forward with it, in other words, pays for the effort, we would have something done by December, and it can be part of the budget discussions then for FY '24-25. That's what I got.
Okay, Steve, you said you're good.
I'm good.
Chris?
All right, got a couple of things here. So we got a couple of sidewalk repairs that we're gonna take care of here. One was one of the leftovers from the last storm damage. Uprooted a tree until that was taken care of. Now we got that. We have a resident also that wants, on Prospect that wants a replacement, and so we'll kind of combine those two together. The annual maintenance agreement with Holloweg is ready to be distributed, so I sent that to Michelle in terms of what's our best way to communicate or how to get that to them. The license for the parking within the Lathrop right-of-way is what we were just going through, me and Lyle
Yeah.
before the meeting, and once that's set, then I will then go to the resident.
Okay, you haven't talked to the resident.
Not yet, no, that was us first, before, just to
Yeah.
make sure. Total Asphalt had a couple projects, so they did the crack sealing of all the bridges, that's been complete and paid for. Now it's repaving the parking lot here is next. That will actually commence on July 31st. So what they're saying, it's at anywhere from, here. Yep. Day to 2 to, again, depending on weather, but it's a couple day project typically.
And they're gonna do that on the weekend, right? We did talk to them about that.
Well, I didn't see what the dates, a good question.
It's Thursday.
Yeah, like a Friday afternoon,
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, yeah.
Okay.
Did not hear anything new on DT, on that street light, for Torrey and Franklin yet, so I asked Dave, part of that correspondence we had was that was approved back in May, so.
Yep.
Lathrop Street construction project, as you mentioned, Dave, right now the bid packages are getting ready to come together. We're expecting that to be done out here in July. The bids will be August with an August award, construction September, October, so. We have Ro gave me a template to modify, so I'll figure out, Dave, drop it off to the affected residents so they know the dates and what to expect for how to traverse the area. And Ross already mentioned the capital improvement plan, so.
Chris, I just would suggest to talk to the post office. If
Yeah.
you're gonna close off half the street
will.
or all of the street,
Yeah.
because getting mail can be really problematic, and sometimes people get overly aggressive and will drive on new
Yes.
cement to hit their destination, so that type of communication is,
Yeah, we did tell them that we're gonna do it, we haven't given them a date yet, because we didn't know.
So that covers you, Chris?
Yes, it does.
Everybody's good? Okay, then moving on from administrative reports. Can I have a motion or, for the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I'll move the consent agenda be accepted as presented.
Support.
All, motion by Ballard, supported by Clark, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. So, no old business, no new business, upcoming agenda items.
Capital improvement plan.
You know, Ross, you say that, but you've gotta narrow this down. For instance,
CIP.
we've done the sewer plant, we're working on the roads, you've done the water. What more do you want at this time?
What about items under the general fund that are the responsibility of the general fund?
What
We
items,
have-
you need to define these, that's all I'm asking you,
Well,
define
I
these.
had some of those.
Not
defined.
like you had on that one report
That
where,
was a that was a one-page recommendation of some items that you could consider. So, a certain reserve would be
But-
nice. Emergency fund for air conditioning and heaters would be nice, right? To replace equipment that fails under the general fund. I'm not responsible for that, he's not.
No. Well, then, you're the one that wants to put it on. I'm just asking you to narrow your scope a little bit.
Well, a capital improvement plan, I think we're doing a good job pretty much now with the street, sewer, water, looking to their future and planning their budgets. It's other items under the general fund, new facilities, we throw the salt dome in the new facilities, or a DPW building if we feel we need it.
No, again,
or
some of this comes
generator.
under budget items, and one of the things, our superintendent needs to do his own budget. You guys should not do Dave's budget for him, he needs to do it, and then you need to look at it to see that you agree, to massage it. Because you guys will be gone,
I'd be happy with
but
that.
the superintendent hopefully is gonna be here. So I want him to be doing that budget.
Okay.
Not you guys telling him what he needs to do, but him telling us what he needs,
Yeah.
working with your guidance also.
I fully.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Because I think last year Dave must not have been involved, because all of a sudden, there's numerous other items that's come up that he didn't talk about. And so some of these capital improvements would be coming under things from our superintendent.
Well, I mean, in my mind, it's a discussion between Dave and you, because you really manage the general fund
But he
With
also
Lyle's-
hasn't came to you.
with Lives Help.
Right.
Yeah, he hasn't said nothing, and I don't know that
I think.
you may
Becky
be right, but I don't know that I totally manage the general fund, but I know I do some things, yes. And let's talk to the treasurer, yes.
Just to point out, because as you all can tell, our air conditioning has been out for the week. And we had the guy out like 3 times to try to fix it. And the system's very old, and he recommended, and when he took a look at the furnace, he said,
That's
we're not
very
gonna
old.
have heat in the fall.
Actually, this is the original, from when this building was built.
Is
No,
it? No.
no.
You know, I don't ever remember
The furnace went
replacing
out,
it.
The heat exchanger went out in the furnace.
Yeah, they just replaced the heat exchanger.
But they didn't replace everything,
Right.
and they didn't replace the
replace
air
the whole
I thought they
conditioning.
would replace the whole furnace. They
Oh, that was an
didn't.
old looking furnace.
Yeah,
If they
it's
replaced
very
it
old.
within the last 10 years, it was
Yeah.
old.
But anyhow, go ahead, Ann,
So,
I'm sorry.
so that's, part of the thing of hanging on to general fund money is emergency situations like
Yeah,
this.
it's a fund balance.
We made a call today on Thursday to say he's recommending that we replace the system. And he gave a surprise, he told us he could be here Monday, today,
But he
and get
was.
started on it.
He was here
He
today.
was, he's been working on it today, and hopefully we'll finish it up tomorrow. But that's why you have to hang on to money to, because his thing was, I can be there Monday, but when can you pay me? And I
Yeah,
said,
no.
we'll
I
have
would-
a check
I would
for you on
suggest-
Tuesday.
Yeah, I suggest there's no argument about
Right.
me keeping a reserve, but every time Curtis comes in here, he tells us, keeping a certain percentage reserve makes sense. Keeping beyond that, you really ought to use the money for public needs or return it to the taxpayer in the form of.
You know what,
rate reduction.
Curtis did not say this.
When Curtis
Curtis
was-
does not support what you said in your report.
I will call Curtis and
And,
I will get exactly what
but,
Curtis
you know-
thinks from him. I'll bring it back to the next meeting.
And
When Curtis
our
was
reserves
here-
are not so big. You know, you should have at least 6 months
Evaporated.
of operating money.
I'll find out what Curtis says, that's fine. I
In
mean,
bigger
I'm
municipalities,
not-
they'll go with a couple months, but
I'm not advocating
Always
spending
congratulated us
anything.
for having such a healthy fund balance.
Right,
And he would not recommend reducing that at all.
no, and when he
I'll
was
find
here
out.
last week for the audit, I mean, if you don't believe me.
He was
but
here.
He was here, I've talked to him on several occasions now, and he said, you need to keep at least a 6 month.
At least.
If everything fell out and we had no money coming in, we have to be able to keep things operating.
and the bottom
And he
did
said,
fall out in
to be
2008.
cautious, you wanna keep at least a year. And
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
about
Yeah.
what you have right
I'm not-
now,
Listen,
without spending any money.
I am not adverse to that, I've never said that I have an issue with keeping reserve funds. I've not said that. But the fact is that we're supposed to have a capital improvement plan. We don't have a general capital improvement plan that looks 6 years out. We don't have one. And I'm not concerned about the stuff under these guys' departments. I'm concerned more about things under the general fund. Okay, so you're just gonna dip into the reserve funds when an emergency happens with this? Why don't you plan for a replacement? I mean, you know.
Well, because we're not gonna tax people
Nobody's
a
talking about
certain
taxes.
percentage so we can have it in case the furnace goes out.
No,
We knew we had.
You already
reserves
have the
for
money,
that.
I'm just saying earmark, or put some items on that list so you know where the money's gonna go.
Just
All right.
to get back, again, you had said you want some about general fund capital improvement, and I had requested that you try to get, narrow the scope a little bit, but
For
you wanted that.
that one task, yes.
What do you wanna have, what do you want on the agenda right now for the upcoming agenda?
I wanted to have a discussion, maybe we've had it now.
No? Well, I think we've had part of it.
No problem. Yeah.
Okay, well then, right now, we're not gonna put anything on. Or is that wrong? You just said,
I'm gonna give Curtis a call, since I'm gonna, cause I had asked to get information back on that, I haven't gotten anything back on
I
that,
did
so I'm.
talk with you. Have you
Okay,
answered?
we're
You
not-
told me what Curtis
What
told you,
Curtis-
not
yeah.
welcome back.
we already went over this. You didn't agree with what Ann said. Ann said she's talked to so anyhow, we're gonna move on.
Yeah, and
So,
Dave,
do
when it
we-
comes to those things too, Dave comes to me with, like, is the reporting
Right.
mechanism. And then just like Ann remembers, yes, it's Dave's list, I then vet, and we all vet with him, hey, what.
And that's exactly the way it should be. He's the superintendent.
And there are items we know that were for future considerations, what do we got this year, then we'll go from there on there.
Some of them
So
general
it's gonna
fund
continue,
type
and
things does
absolutely.
come under that.
Absolutely.
But, okay, moving on, citizens' comment.
I'm done.
Okay,
I'm busy.
okay.
Well, thank you.
Um,
Heck of a meeting for you to do
okay.
that at, it's hot in here.
Now, council compliments. No compliments, council comments.
like to compliment you on
Everybody but Ross. I'm sorry, Ross, I just can't resist sometimes. But, council comment, anyone, please. Joe,
Next to your,
Mike, Lyle, Ross, Steve, Chris?
Nope.
Ann, Michelle?
no,
Wait,
close the
Mike.
meeting, it's hot.
Okay. We do thank you for that 10-minute
I wasn't intending to go.
presentation by the DPW that you said was
I
gonna be.
did tell Phil 10 minutes.
Yeah, I remember the 10 minutes from you. Okay, community events.
Concerts.
Concert in the Parks, this Wednesday.
Okay, and that's,
It's,
The
the Swing Shift Orchestra.
the swing shift.
Yeah, there are like 22 members in the
I
orchestra.
remember that guy from last year.
Hope the rain holds off,
Yeah,
we're talking
because-
about rain.
All right.
Yeah, I don't think they'll come.
Okay.
You got the Armada Peace Festival. You got the
So-
Armada Peace Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Made a peach festival.
Peace.
Peace
Oh,
Festival.
peach festival.
Armada Peace Festival.
Oh, that's
on the
this
29th.
weekend?
No, that's the 29th of July.
Okay, well, we can listen to that. Peace Festival, 29th of July. We have no closed session, so I would entertain a motion.
The time is 8:06. I move to adjourn.
Support.
Support by Ross.
Thank you.
Motion by Ballard, support by Melky. To adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.